Hey everybody, it's Johnny Two Face here, back with another reaction video. This time I'm reacting to Rise of China Battle for Survival by Epic History. So, still reacting to this series about Rise of China by Epic History, and hopefully see it through to the end, and whenever it does end, but still. So, apologies in advance for any butchering of any pronunciation with any foreign languages, and you know the gist. When it says Battle for Survival, it's either the Communist Party under Mao Zedong or the Kuomintang. That's where my guess is lying for the moment. So as usual, the usual disclaimer when I react to any historical content: if I don't show what is considered a proper reaction, it's probably obvious I don't know much about the subject at hand, and if I do know anything, I'll most likely pause the video to give my input or ask any curious questions, which hopefully will be answered in the comments. With that being said, the link to the original video will be in the description down below. Please go and check out Epic History. They're an amazing channel, and hopefully subscribe and support their channel, as so many others have done. So, I don't really want to ramble on too long, so get this up on screen. Full screening will help. Oop, hello. Right. So, subtitles on for, as usual, for historical videos. And let's get into this. Oh god, that's loud. Sorry to turn my speakers down a bit. Chiang Kai-shek. This is a turning point for existence or obliteration, so it must be the Kuomintang. War with Japan.
China, 1937. Tensions have been rising on the border with Manchukuo, a puppet state run by an increasingly militaristic Japan. So far, China's nationalist leader, Chiang Kai-shek, has carefully avoided a major confrontation. His strategy has been to buy time, to eliminate his internal communist enemies first. But bowing to increasing anti-Japanese sentiment across China, he has concluded a truce with the communists. On the 7th of July, at the Marco Polo Bridge outside Peking, there's an argument over a missing Japanese soldier, and shots are fired.
News from the front.
Within days, Japanese reinforcements flood the area. But this time, China is ready to push back. In a speech made 10 days after the Marco Polo Bridge incident, Chiang Kai-shek warns of the struggle ahead. Let our people fully understand the meaning of the limit of endurance and the scale of sacrifice implied. For once that stage is...
Where, I'm not sure if I remember this correctly, but for a while it seems like a lot of China has been on the back foot, but because before it became fully united, even though Japanese forces were teaming up with at least one or two warlords, if I remember correctly.
Reached. We can only sacrifice and fight to the bitter end.
Rousing speech.
The national mood is summed up by a popular song, March of the Volunteers.
Arise. Hang on, I missed it. Arise, those who refuse to be slaves. With our flesh and blood, let's build our new great wall. The Chinese nation is at its greatest peril. Each one is forced to let out the one last roar. Okay.
In 1978, March of the Volunteers will become China's official national anthem.
Okay.
The fighting around Peking rapidly escalates into a full-scale invasion. Some historians consider this the moment World War II begins. Chiang Kai-shek's National Revolutionary Army, the NRA, is in the unusual position of receiving support from both the Soviet Union
Wow.
and Nazi Germany.
Oh, wow.
But it's not enough to hold back the Japanese
I knew they would probably have help from the Soviet Union, but not Nazi Germany.
Imperial Army. With superior tactics, modern equipment, and air superiority, they smash through Chinese defenses. Within 6 weeks, nearly 200,000 Japanese troops have occupied a broad swathe of northern China, including the old imperial capital, Peking. But it's in Shanghai that both sides will plunge into the abyss.
That's one hell of a way to put it. It is our fixed policy to resist to the last inch and to the last man. Chiang Kai-shek. The Battle of Shanghai.
Shanghai is the largest city in China, and its commercial
I
and
didn't know
cultural
that.
capital. The heart of the city is the international
Is that still the case in China? Shanghai, the biggest city in China. Is that a... Can anyone put in the comments if that's actually still the case, or is it another city that's now become the biggest?
settlement, established by Western imperial powers in the 19th century, and jointly run by 14 countries, including Japan.
Wow.
The Japanese have recently overtaken the British as the largest foreign
Wow.
presence in Shanghai, with 30,000 civilians, as well as 8,000 Marines and 32 naval vessels. Chiang Kai-shek sees an opportunity to divert the Japanese from their northern offensive, while also bringing the war to international attention.
Okay.
On the 13th of August, he orders Chinese forces to attack Japanese ships moored in Shanghai. The Japanese send reinforcements. Shanghai and the surrounding region become a major battlefront, drawing in 1 million troops. The city is devastated in fierce urban fighting, with tanks on the streets, poison gas attacks, and air raids. The NRA suffers heavy losses, particularly to its elite German-trained divisions.
Wow.
In late October, it begins to withdraw. A single battalion is left behind to hold the Sihang warehouse. In desperate fighting, the Suicide Battalion holds out for 6 precious days. Buying time for other units to escape. Their sacrifice and the horrors of the battle occur directly under the gaze of foreign observers based in Shanghai's international settlement, where they are shielded from the worst of the fighting.
Wow.
Their images and reports quickly travel around the world and turn Western public opinion firmly against the Japanese. But what happened?
Especially since Japan was allied with the Triple Entente in World War One.
Next will shock the world.
In all modern history, surely there is no page that will stand so black as that as the rape of Nanking, American missionary. I've heard only a little about this. The Nanking Massacre.
Japanese forces pursue the retreating NRA to the new nationalist capital, Nanking. After a ferocious 4-day battle, they enter the city on the 13th of December. The few Westerners inside the city form an international safety zone to shelter themselves and some of the local population. But most Chinese civilians are left to the mercy of the Japanese. For 6 weeks, Japanese soldiers go on the rampage, looting, torturing, raping, and murdering. The numbers are disputed, but between 50,000 and 300,000 civilians are killed. Around 30,000 Chinese prisoners of war are shot in mass executions. Others are decapitated, or buried alive, or used for bayonet practice. Bodies are piled up in the streets, burned, and dumped in the Yangtze River. The International Safety Zone is managed by German businessman and Nazi supporter John Rabe. He is appalled by the violence and hopes Hitler will intervene to stop the Japanese. Instead, the fall of Nanking convinces the Nazis that Japan is the stronger partner. And Germany cuts off its military support to China.
Not surprised.
The rape of Nanking appalls the world. It is condemned by the USA and League of Nations, the international body dedicated to maintaining world peace. But their words are not backed up by action.
And there lies the problem.
Atrocities become a feature of the Japanese war against China. The systematic use of rape as a weapon of war. Forced prostitution on a massive scale. And the use of chemical and biological weapons on civilians and prisoners of war, which killed many thousands.
It's horrific.
The Japanese army's next objective is Wuhan. There is a rare Chinese victory at the Battle of Taiyuan, but it is not enough to halt the Japanese. Chiang Kai-shek's government makes a desperate and fateful decision. The order is given to breach dikes holding back the Yellow River at Huayuankou. The hope is that the floods will stop the Japanese army in its tracks. In early June, the floodwaters of the Yellow River surge south and east across the densely populated North China Plain. There has been no advance warning to the villages and towns in its path. The consequences are catastrophic. Farmland and entire villages are submerged.
That's the problem with desperation. It can lead to invention, but at a very damaging cost.
500,000 civilians perish. 5 million are made homeless. The loss of farmland will cause famine and hardship for years to come. One of the greatest man-made disasters in history, committed by the Chinese government against its own people. The floods fail to stop the Japanese, who merely bypass the affected areas. By the time Chinese and Japanese forces clash near Wuhan,
That's the problem, it's a gamble, and it came at a price which barely did anything but harm its own people.
there are nearly 2 million men engaged. The battle for the city is hard fought.
But being a bit off topic here, it's not surprising that this is probably not the first time a civilization has took a gamble like that, where using the environment to stop its enemy, but instead a huge cost to its own people.
With heavy losses on both sides. But once again, Japanese air power and tactics, alongside the widespread use of poison gas, proved decisive. The city falls after 4 months. The nationalist government retreats 500 miles further inland to Chongqing, in the western province of Sichuan. The Japanese now occupy China's largest cities and install a new puppet government in Nanking. But despite its victories, the Japanese army is too exhausted to land another major blow. The war enters a stalemate.
I probably should have said before, there probably would have been a cost to the victor.
Historians label this conflict the Second Sino-Japanese War. The Chinese call it the War of Resistance. But it is about to become a crucial front in a world war.
World War II. As the rising sun melts thinly frozen ice, so the Japanese army is overcoming Chinese troops. General Shunroku Hata. World War II, 1939 to 1945.
By 1939, China's only major foreign backer is the Soviet Union. It provides crucial supplies, and its pilots and aircraft make up most of the Nationalist Air Force. The Soviets are fighting their own war against Japan, a widely forgotten conflict on Russia's Far Eastern frontier. But that summer, with war looming in Europe, Stalin makes a truce with Japan.
Wow.
It is signed on the 15th of September.
Oh yeah, because I think with the war looming in Europe, I think one of their main targets was Finland. Because I've been watching I watched a few videos about Simo Hayaha. Probably butchered that pronunciation. The world's deadliest sniper from Finland. And yeah, and also, I can't remember the year, but I think also comes across Stalin's eventual purges of supposed opposition. But anyway, that's going off topic.
2 days later, Soviet troops invade Poland as allies of Nazi Germany. Despite losing its major foreign ally, China fights on against the Japanese occupation. Chongqing becomes a nationalist redoubt, pummeled by more than 200 Japanese air raids. While in northern China, communists carry out large-scale guerrilla attacks on the Japanese. But all cooperation between communists and nationalists has once more been broken off. The nationalists now receive foreign arms and supplies via French Indochina, today Vietnam, Cambodia and Laos. So in 1940, Japan occupies French Indochina to cut the link. But this fresh act of Japanese imperialism alarms the Western powers, whose Southeast Asian colonies are now within range of Japanese forces. The US, Britain, and the Dutch impose an oil embargo on Japan, which threatens to cripple its economy and its war effort in China. The Western powers hope Japan will back down. But in Tokyo, the decision is taken to gamble on war. In December 1941, the Japanese launch a surprise attack on the US naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii.
If I remember right, they sunk a few ships but didn't hit the major infrastructure like the fuel tankers or most of the storage repair yards. They hit a few buildings that weren't actually made. Like, I think it was a few residential parts, but they didn't hit the major shipbuilding yards or the fuel tankers or the repair sections. They just hit random parts of the island and just sunk one or two ships, I think. Feel free to correct me in the comments.
They simultaneously bomb US and British bases across Southeast Asia.
Wow.
In a series of rapid, bold advances, the Japanese capture British colonies including Hong Kong and Singapore, the Philippines, and the oil-rich Dutch East Indies. But Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor has woken a sleeping giant. Within a year, US factories are turning out more vehicles, ships, and aircraft than all the other combatant powers put together. China will be one beneficiary.
Bear in mind that other European powers were still kind of exhausted from the First World War. And after a 20-year armistice, with World War II kicking off, I think it just managed to hold on, with France eventually surrendering after Paris is taken. And most of southern France becomes a Nazi puppet state, or known as Vichy France, I think.
Receiving more than $1.5 billion worth of armaments as part of the US Lend-Lease program. When the Japanese take Burma, supplies have to be flown into China from India, a perilous route over the Himalayas, known to US pilots as the Hump. Chiang Kai-shek also receives a new chief military advisor, the famously acerbic US General Vinegar Joe Stilwell.
Vinegar Joe.
Stilwell regards Chiang as a stubborn, ignorant, prejudiced, and conceited despot.
Wow.
The loathing is mutual. Chiang, like many, finds Stilwell's arrogant and overbearing manner hard to stomach. Further aid comes in the form of Major General Claire Chennault's famous Flying Tigers. This elite squadron of American volunteers has remarkable success against the Japanese Air Force. As the war goes on, more US air units arrive in China, leading to the construction of several US air bases. China is now one of the four major Allied powers, alongside the US, Britain, and Soviet Union. In November 1943, Chiang travels to Cairo, Egypt, to attend a conference with British Prime Minister Winston Churchill and US President Franklin Roosevelt. Chinese resistance is tying down nearly 1 million Japanese soldiers, and they assure Chiang of increased support, though in reality, neither sees China as a priority. Yet help is desperately needed. What remains of the Chinese economy is collapsing, with rampant inflation, corruption, and a devastated industrial sector. The nationalist government is struggling to pay its soldiers, who desert in growing numbers. Just as Japan is preparing to launch its largest operation of the war.
In this war, China is losing all the battles, but China is on the winning side. Edgar Snow. I'm not sure who that is. Probably tell me. Operation Ichigo.
April 1944. Japan is on the back foot against the Allies in the Pacific. It hopes to salvage the situation with a massive offensive in China to link up northern China with Indochina and destroy US airfields in the south that are used to bomb Japan. The codename is Operation Ichigo. Weakened Chinese forces break under the onslaught. Several US air bases are taken, and the connection between north and south is established by October. Once more, the Chinese military suffers enormous losses.
Wow.
Defeat is another blow to Chiang's reputation. But when Stilwell demands that he be put in direct command of all Chinese forces, Chiang gets him replaced.
Wow.
Yet US faith in Chiang is fraying. Some contrast nationalist corruption and incompetence with the success of the Chinese communists, who continue to wage their guerrilla warfare campaign against the Japanese in the north. But the success of Operation Ichigo comes too late to save Japan. In the spring of 1945, the last major Japanese offensive in China is defeated.
Wow.
And Chinese troops counterattack. US strategic bombing of Japan's home islands culminates in August 1945 with the dropping of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah.
Simultaneously, the Soviet Union invades Manchuria. Within a week, Emperor Hirohito announces Japan's unconditional surrender to the Allies. The Second World War is over. The death toll is staggering.
I can imagine.
Between 15 and 20 million Chinese lives are lost.
That's hard to fathom.
Only the Soviet Union suffers more.
Oh yeah. Battle on two fronts.
Then there is the multitude of wounded, the refugees, and the destitute. The country will have to undergo complete reconstruction. But who will lead it is still to be settled.
Yeah. Political power grows out of the barrel of a gun. Mao Zedong. Civil War.
Japan's defeat leaves a vacuum in China, which both nationalists and communists rush to fill. From the Soviet Union, the communists receive Manchuria and captured Japanese weaponry, while the US and Britain fly nationalist forces into northern and eastern China. In an effort to prevent open conflict, Chiang Kai-shek and Mao Zedong meet for US-sponsored talks in Chongqing. The agreement they reach is short-lived. As Chiang Kai-shek remarks to his aides, the sky cannot have two suns.
Wow.
In 1946, civil war erupts as Chiang launches an assault on the communist-held North, led by his elite US-trained divisions. The nationalists make advances, taking Shanyang and the communists' wartime base in Yan'an. But the communists weather the storm, avoiding major battles and sticking to their wartime guerrilla tactics. And in rural areas, their program of land reform attracts many thousands of peasants to their cause. In contrast, the nationalists have been burnishing their reputation for incompetent and corrupt government. Chinese industry and trade have been devastated by war. But economic mismanagement adds to the misery, causing hyperinflation. And despite heavy backing from the US in loans and military supplies, the nationalists are rapidly losing support in both cities and rural areas. In 1947, General Lin Biao reorganizes communist forces into the People's Liberation Army, nearly 1 million strong. Mao decides this is the moment to abandon guerrilla tactics and take on the nationalists in open warfare. In a string of successful counter-offensives, the communists capture territory, weapons and supplies, and conscript deserters and prisoners into their ranks. The tide of war is shifting dramatically. In September 1948, the People's Liberation Army launches 3 major offensives. In the first, Lin Biao sweeps the nationalists out of Manchuria. The nationalists lose more than 400,000 men. Only 150,000 are able to escape south. The following month, 2 simultaneous campaigns lead to the capture of Tianjin and Zhuzhou. It is a disastrous winter for the nationalists, who suffer another 500,000 casualties and lose much of their best military equipment.
And surrounded in Peking.
In just 4 months, the communists have won 3 major victories and driven their enemies from northern China. In the southern cities, there is chaos and lawlessness as nationalist rule breaks down. That spring, the
I was about to say, I'm guessing he was about to say it, but perfect time for the communist forces to take advantage of the chaos and literally rapidly zoom south.
communist advance continues.
I'm not an expert, so...
In April, they take Nanking. And the following month, China's largest city, Shanghai. On the 1st of October 1949, Mao Zedong, chairman of the Chinese Communist Party, stands before a packed Tiananmen Square in Peking and proclaims the founding of the People's Republic of China. That winter, the last nationalist-held areas fall to communist forces. It's estimated more than 2 million soldiers were killed or wounded in the 4 years of China's civil war. Perhaps another 5 million civilians perish through fighting, famine, and disease.
And caught in the crossfire.
Chiang Kai-shek, alongside some 2 million nationalist troops and many refugees, retreats to Taiwan one of the last territories still under nationalist control. Chiang Kai-shek will never return to mainland China. Where Mao Zedong and the Communist Party are triumphant. Now the work will begin to build a new China from the wreckage of invasion and civil war. Do you want to watch unreleased new Epic History videos right now? Weeks before they...
Okay, that's the end of that video. The rest of it is a sponsor. So, this being another great, well put together video by Epic History, and another interesting thing about China's ingrowing problems, as well as going through World War II, fighting the Japanese, and and yes, I have heard about the Nanking massacre, or of Nanking. Sorry, I'm trying not to say out loud because I don't know how YouTube will respond for me saying out loud, so... But I'll just say the Nanking disaster, just to save time. So, yeah, that's one of the very few atrocities I heard Japan make during World War II. So, but altogether, another interesting video. So, all I can say is, if you like this reaction, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.